Okay, so I thought I'd do another unboxing. Um, See how this goes. Just got this in today. It was actually delayed somewhat in the mail. Not from the company that I ordered it from. I ordered this from Noble Knight Games. And I think they actually did a very good job of moving very quickly to send the item. But then, stuff happened, and it took about, I don't know, a week or so more than it was supposed to. Anyhow, let's see what I've got, see if there's any paperwork. There's not. I got Eternal Lies for Trail of Cthulhu. Let's see how it made it through. The box had taken a hit, but this looks in pretty good shape. So I picked up Trail of Cthulhu a few years ago, and I found it interesting. I had picked up a different gumshoe game, and I thought there were elements of the game mechanic that were pretty cool. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on the game in its entirety, but I'm certainly willing to check it out and give it a try. This is very sticky. There we go. Okay, so here's Eternal Lies by Will Hindmarch, if I'm saying the name correctly, Jeff Tidball, and Jeremy Keller. Trail of Cthulhu Eternal Lies looks pretty cool. Now this is a campaign. I got this because I had been looking into various Call of Cthulhu campaigns, and including, of course, Masks of Nyarlathotep and Horror on Orient Express, the big ones. But several people were saying that this campaign from Trail of Cthulhu was really good, and I hadn't heard much about it when it first came out, and I didn't really pick up any of the Trail of Cthulhu supplements. I thought about a couple of them, but I just never got any. This thing's actually pretty hefty, and I've heard it compared to Masks, so I'm curious to see how that goes. So it just says, a decade ago, a team of occult investigators battled to stop the summoning of an ancient and evil monster. They failed. Now the world is yours to save or lose. Okay, cool. And I believe there's some world hopping involved in this one. Let's take a quick look through. Yeah, the corners did get dinged up a little, and I don't know if it's in transit or what have you, but it's the sort of typical shelfware. I mean, it's a hardcover, so it's gonna last. And if I'm gonna, use this, if I'm gonna run this, it's probably gonna get a little dinged up here or there. Let's see. Play testers, cool contents there. There we go. There's an introduction to the campaign that makes sense. Keeper's introduction. Player background investigators. Act 1. Okay, so we got Savannah, Georgia. Los Angeles, California. Obviously, I guess there's going to be possible spoilers. If you're thinking about playing this game, don't watch this video. And maybe tell your person who might run this game for you to come look at it. I don't know. That's what Seth Grikowski always says, so maybe that's what I should say. So we've got Savannah, Georgia. We've got Los Angeles, California. Bangkok, Ethiopia, Malta, Mexico City, Yucatan. So, yeah, you get around in this one, apparently. Let's see. Act 3, Tibet. Oh, nice. Okay. So, wait, Tibet, yeah. Huh, interesting. Okay. So it definitely hits a whole bunch of places around the world. So that's cool. Uh, I don't know. I've talked a little bit in some previous videos about where Lovecraftian horror, where cosmic horror and pulp sort of split, and I feel like maybe a lot of many of the published scenarios and adventures, I think, tend maybe to lean a little more toward pulp, and it makes sense because pulp is probably more fun to play, especially in any kind of long-term game. If you're playing a campaign, cosmic horror only takes you so far because you will go mad or die or the world will end. So that's not great. Whereas with more pulpy scenarios, you have a chance to, if not win, at least win for now. So I don't know where this one falls on the spectrum. I have not yet had a chance to play Trail of Cthulhu at all, so I'm not sure how that goes. We'll see, I guess. Okay, let's take a quick gander through here. We've got some, looks like some player characters maybe, pre-made ones. That's interesting. What is this? Investigator Matrix. Okay, I'll have to learn on that. So I know, there's a different sort of a philosophy with Trail of Cthulhu where less is necessarily based on a die roll. And I think that a lot of keepers for Call of Cthulhu were already sort of doing this anyway. You don't want your whole campaign derailed because somebody failed to find a clue when doing library research. So you make sure that they get that clue no matter how it plays out. You have to figure out how it goes. And I believe that Trail of Cthulhu is set primarily in the 30s. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I love the 20s. I find them a fascinating time. So much good, so much bad. So much bad. You have the lost generation. You have these broken people who went through World War I, went through this massive flu epidemic, had seen Europe crumble, and the racist stuff going on, and the disparity between rich and poor, and then prohibition kicking in, and organized crime, and all of this stuff happening. And it's a fascinating decade, but it's a little bit alien. It's still so rooted in the sort of Edwardian era and the Gilded Age. You still have so much of the 1800s lingering on, and that early 20th century, and you have so much political upheaval, but also so much of the old world holding on. I mean, you're just getting women the vote. You're just throwing off some old prejudices, but there's so many more still clinging on. So I find it a very interesting time, but I do think that if you slide that forward a little bit more to the 30s, and you move into the pulp era, and you move into talkies, and you move into music that's a little more familiar, because even if you didn't listen to the original version, you listened to Sinatra covering the original version. So by the 30s, things are starting to feel a little more familiar. And I think in the States anyway, we learn a lot more about the Depression. We see the photography, the stark imagery of the Depression in the Dust Bowl, and we talk about that. And then, of course, it's also the lead up to the events that will become World War II. And I feel like the 30s is more crystallized in a lot of our pop culture to some level. Indiana Jones takes place in the 30s, and these pulp adventurers, I can't remember what the Rocketeer. I feel like that was either 30s or early 40s, and the Shadow, and all of those sorts of things. And that's where you have Superman showing up, and I feel like the 30s maybe people can connect to a little more, so maybe it's going to be a little easier. You also have radio is a much bigger thing. Radio in the 20s was there, but it was still a new thing. It had been essentially military, with a lot of civilian stuff restricted up until the early 20s or late teens. I think it was early 20s. So, and transportation's a little more familiar. It's all of that stuff has by the 30s is a little more recognizable, and so I think setting Trail of Cthulhu in the 30s is interesting in that I think it will be a little easier for people to grasp, especially if they like older movies. If they like, they watch TCM, they're probably seeing more movies from the 30s than they are from the 20s because people are a little more reticent to watch silent films. So I'm just doing some quick flipping through. Gross. So I really don't know actually what this campaign is about. And at some point, no doubt, I'm going to have to sit down and give it a read through. I see that there's a lot of sort of flashback to 1924, which I find interesting because this whole something went down 10 years ago and it didn't go well, and I guess you must be uncovering some elements of that. So yeah, Los Angeles in the 30s, that's going to be interesting. A lot of cool stuff happening. And so I wonder, am I going to be able to at some point run this? And if I do, will I just port it over into whatever Call of Cthulhu game I'm running at the time? Will I actually run it as Trail of Cthulhu? I don't know. I don't know how that'll play out. Call of Cthulhu has some challenges, some elements that I don't know if they 100% work for me with the genre. Maybe they do work a little more with pulp, so I may lean into that with 7th edition with Pulp Cthulhu. But Trail of Cthulhu, I feel like also had, there were elements that I thought were very interesting, but there were some elements that I don't know if they worked so much for me. So I don't know. Maybe if I have a little bit more experience playing Trail of Cthulhu, I'll feel a little better about this. So there's a lot. There's clearly a lot in this. And, I can see, because there's not a ton of art. There is art in it, and the art is nice, but there's not a ton of it. There is a ton of text. So I can see how this book, which is just shy of 400 pages, or is 400 pages. Well, okay, last page is blank. So 399 pages. 399 pages of a lot of fairly dense text makes me think that, yeah, this is going to be a hefty scenario to play through. Wow. And with the world hopping element to it, I find that, interesting. I find it compelling, I guess. Compelling, but also a little maybe daunting. Ethiopia could be really cool. Eritrea, I knew a girl from Eritrea. This is cool. So I don't know. Dealing with stuff in Africa could be cool. You go to Asia, and I don't know if it might be the kind of thing where if I had an ongoing game, if I ever actually established a regular group of Call of Cthulhu players, might I eventually weave some of the elements of this campaign into a regular recurring one, so that, say, as they slide out of the 20s and into the 30s, that the events of this campaign become appropriate to run for them. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to give it a real serious read through. So anyhow, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Eternal Lies. Boy, I'm just very curious to see what all happens in this, where this all eventually goes. I see stuff that looks like it might be handouts that I guess I'd have to photocopy out of the book. I don't know if there's as robust an online resource for this. I'll have to take a look. A lot of Call of Cthulhu product has a robust online resource. So if you want to find handouts, you can frequently find either original Chaosium produced handouts or fan-made handouts for various scenarios on yogsothoth.com, I think it is. I think that's what it's called. Some of those various websites. There's a bunch of them out there, and I don't know if there is as much support like that online. I'll have to look into that and see. I feel like photocopying out of this book might not be ideal. So it's a pretty hefty hardcover. Seems fairly well bound. I feel like it's got some. It'll lie flat fairly well, so that's nice. I hear a little bit of cracking, which always makes me nervous, but I don't see any sign that there's a problem with it. So hopefully this will stand up to long time use. I do like that. It's not like a lie flat binding, but at least it does seem to open pretty well. So yeah, there we go. Eternal Lies for Trail of Cthulhu. If you have run this campaign or played in it, let me know what you thought. Have you woven it into a longer game or just run it straight? How long did it take? Because, I'm hearing with Masks, I hear 1.5 to 2 years, and I've been hearing that this is comparable. So is this really a 2-year campaign? Honestly, with 400 pages of dense text, maybe it is. So let me know if you have experience with it, and yeah, and then do the usual stuff, like, comment, all of that sort of thing. Check out my stories if you want to. I'm an independent author, the usual. All right, take care.